For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh. Revi. On the gist today, Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, former DGMO, former 15 Corps Commander, former Military Secretary, and currently DG of the ISPA, joins us to discuss the announcement of Agnipath. General Bhatt, evening, sir, and thank you for giving us time on StratNews Global.
Good evening, Amitabh, and it's always a pleasure to be there, and I look forward to this discussion.
We saw the announcement, it was postponed. You expected it last week, it didn't happen. But today, Rajnath Singh, the Raksha Mantri, the service chiefs, broad contours were already kind of known. But you would agree that this is a big transformational step for the military, sir?
I would agree with you that it is a very significant change which will have lasting effects on the Indian Army. In fact, as far as this government goes, I think this change is far bigger than the appointment of the CDS or the theaterization which is being planned. The effects will be seen after a longer time, maybe after 10 years or later, but they are going to be lasting and will change the Indian Army forever.
One of the points that was raised was that the military will become more useful. From the present average of about 32, it will come down to maybe 26 in 5 to 6 years. Is it an attempt to make it a leaner, meaner fighting machine?
Very rightly, what we got briefed is that the study they have done in other countries and the example they have taken, definitely Agniveer, because with very young men from 17 and a half to 21 joining and being there for tenures of 4 years, will reduce the average age of the Indian Army and make it younger and maybe leaner and meaner.
And when the Agniveers, some of them will be there for only 4 years, they'll be just about up to 25% retention. Your thoughts on that, General?
You know, when initially I came to know of it, this was my big area of concern and worry. And primarily the worry was that after Agniveers have been taken for the next 10 to 15 years, or at some stage, there would be 75% Agniveers and 25% regulars in any battalion, unit, or the whole Indian Army. But what we were told and briefed, and when we asked this question, is the Army or the armed forces have decided that as soon as a unit has a ratio of 50 to 50, they would ensure that no more Agniveers are taken, or this ratio of 50% regulars and 50% Agniveers is maintained. However, I personally feel it would have been much better if the ratio of regulars was 60%, while the Agniveers were 40%. It would give more balance of youthfulness and experience to any unit.
If you could explain that thought of why you would rather it have been a different ratio, but even that ratio, you're talking 10 years down the line?
Yes, 10 years or maybe more, because the way they have outlined the recruitment for the next year, 40,000 for the first 3 years and 50,000 for the fourth year. Effectively, in a unit, there will be only 30 people, Agniveers, which will be coming every year. That means in the next 4 years, it is 120 people which are coming. A unit today of an infantry battalion is about 800 people. So it's not a very large number. But overall, what we are saying is when Agniveer rolls out completely, maybe in a decade or more, how will a unit or the Indian Army look? And there what they say is they will not let it go beyond a ratio of 50% of regular and 50% of Agniveers. Here is what I'm saying. I personally feel this ratio would be better if it is 60% of regular and 40% of Agniveers. But yes, what they also said was that it is subject to change as as they will see how it rolls out, they will curate it accordingly.
So, in essence, there was a lot of opposition from retired senior personnel, other experts on these two grounds. One was an argument that maybe there would be more tail that is being added to the military rather than teeth. And the second was, why are you making such a major transformational change? Why don't you do it gradually? But both those seem to be addressed, at least in
Yes.
what the
So,
military and the government is saying.
yes. So apparently, as it looks, that it is a major change being done suddenly. The effects of the change are going to take a lot of time, because the way they are planning to, the numbers they are planning to recruit every year, this will slowly flow in, and that will help the army to absorb to the new transformation.
And again, the argument that was put by those who oppose this was that you would need more recruitment resources, more training resources, and hence you're adding more tail to the military rather than teeth.
During our interaction today with the vice chiefs and the chief, this question was asked, and they have assured us, and especially I'm talking of the army, that they have capacities for about 62,000 presently, while what would be required for the next 4 years is only 40,000. Thereafter, also, as the number of Agniveers or the recruits grows to a lakh and beyond, they have enough capacities to develop it in that time. Yes, for maybe a few peak years, it would be slightly large, but permanently it is not going to be there. We also have to keep in mind that the period of training now is being reduced. This will provide more capacities to the existing capacity itself.
True. What about Naam, Namak, Nishan? A lot of seniors, elders in the army, former generals, say the ethos or the tradition is being meddled with, and the argument is that it will affect the cutting edge in terms of, say, motivation. There's a lot of anxiety, General.
Uh, you know, a change, and especially for us men in uniform, is always traumatic. We believe we continue with what our past experience and what has been best. And like you, what you are flashing in front of me is a very senior gentleman who I have a lot of regard for. I do not personally feel that it will really affect it. If more young people are coming for short periods, the balance, and like which I said, should be 60% and not 40% after 10 to 15 years, will ensure that Naam, Namak, Nishan continues. And it has to continue.
One of the doubts was raised is that many join for security, a longer period, pension, other benefits. I'm just going to take a question from a viewer, General. Amazing Animals, who says, frankly, I doubt many people will opt for this. Big reasons that people join the army or the military is for job security, pension, military hospital, canteen, etc. Why would one join if these benefits are not there?
Amitabh, I would start with my own example. I did not join for pension, MH, or canteen. I joined at 17. When I joined, it was the thrill of putting on a uniform. I've been fortunate that I have served the Indian Army and served till the age of 60. And every day I pray that if I am reborn, I again join the army. So that I would not agree that it is a secure job which people are looking for. There is a charm in wearing this uniform, being looked up by your whole nation, and doing something, going into a profession where you are looked up, and especially in India. That has been my experience, and I think that will motivate many, many other young men to join. I don't see the Agnipath is going to be rolled in the next 90 days, and let us see. Do we have a fall of recruits, or many will join? Let me tell you with confidence, there will be many who will join, despite the scheme being only for 4 years and only
Though
25%.
Raksha Mantri made a very sarcastic remark when asked about what lessons had been learned from other militaries who were doing similar things. But you would have studied different militaries, whether it's the Marines in the US or even Israel, completely different models. But what are the best practices that have been incorporated, so as to speak, in this model?
Now, let me tell you first about Israel. That army has an excellent reputation because they are fighting with so many adversaries around. But their 3 years are because of compulsion,
Yeah.
because they do not have a choice. They have to take everyone as a conscript and thereafter take regulars. Now, coming to America, they have followed a model of 4 years, and as what I can make out of it, it has been very successful. Unlike what people believe that the people who leave from here will get into violence outside and all. No, it does not happen. The Marines have been every year 20,000 Marines retire and 20,000 new are recruited. One doesn't hear of violence being instigated by them. They do become useful members and are sought after into many private jobs. But coming to India, yes, our regimental system is well tested. It is a very good and an excellent system, and I'm very sure that least tinkering with it will be done, even after we roll out the Agnipath.
And one of those thoughts that you were talking about, people the Agniveers going back into society, those who choose not to stay on for a permanent commission. The aim is to try and give them opportunities to enter the job market with skills that they pick up, with education and a corpus of funds.
Now, of the fund, you would be knowing that about 11 to 12 lakhs is what they're talking of, not a very large amount. But more important is the commitment of the armed forces and the government to help them to resettle into civilian life, into jobs in the civil, maybe the jobs in PMF, police, and other places. I believe today the Prime Minister had a conference with all the secretaries where he wants to look into all ministries to look where jobs for Agniveers can be provided. This is the task which will have to be done very seriously to ensure that all these young men who go back after 4 years become useful members of the society.
But since they will be, quote unquote, weeded out of the military system, is there a danger that they could be seen as rejects when they try and approach for jobs?
No. Like even in the Royal Marine, they say you choose to stay for 4 years, and thereafter you can extend it if you want to. Otherwise, you go, and the large percentage goes. Uh, After 4 years, many would be leaving by their own choice also. Not that they would be wanting to. And yes, those who wanted to stay and were not able to stay because of only 25% being selected, these people have to be resettled into jobs, into opportunities, into wherever they belong. Not that it would be easy, but it is not so serious that they will be misused by some lumpen elements.
You mentioned the Prime Minister's meeting with the secretaries. Raksha Mantri also mentioned that his understanding was that over the next few days it would become clear how other ministries would also help in that process. But just another comment question from Senbagu Muthu Rahul, General. He says, will the private sector absorb Agniveers after 4 years? Other security agencies or central agencies and states can also absorb them.
Oh, yes, it is not only the private sector, but it will, as I feel, some commitment has to be there from PMF, state polices, and other security agencies. They are trained, well trained men who would have served in the military for 4 years, and they would be very useful. Maybe there is no fixed quota, but I personally feel they will cross any test bar for them to be taken. And I'm very sure a waiver for age will be organized for them for joining maybe the other PMF or other forces. I definitely
And
see
if
some kind of incentive will be given by the government. Maybe it is not in writing as a quota, but some incentive for to help them to join other security forces will be there.
And if you could explain also for those who don't understand the All India concept in terms of recruitment for the Army General.
We have firstly, I should tell you that as on today, 75% of the Indian Army, that is our battalions and regiments, of all our logistics units, of large part of our artillery, a certain percentage of the armored and infantry are on the all India, all caste concept. That is, people come from all India and people come from all caste and classes. It is only the regimental system is there in large part of the infantry, in some part of the armored corps, and a very little part of artillery. But this regimental system has stood the test of time. Be it the Sikhs, the Grenadiers, the Jats, the Gurkhas. This regimental system has brought a unique kind of infantryman who has done well for the nation in all what we have fought. And that is why it is very important that they call it the recruitable male population ratios. That is, every district, how many people can be recruited. That is skewed at the moment. It is there for certain regiments up in north, from Uttarakhand to Himachal Pradesh to Punjab, where there are more soldiers who come there than the recruitable male population. This will have to be corrected, and this will get corrected after the Agnipath. But the traditions, history, and ethos of these regiments, I believe and I hope will continue for a longer time.
Talking about traditions, General, another comment / question from Armed Forces Lover. He says, sir, during war, Agniveers will not follow a senior officer's command, as they know after 4 years they will be released. I know what you're going to say, but you will say it.
We would have failed in training and motivating them and bringing them into our culture if such a thing happens. I'm very sure it is not going to. They will, many of them, as we see as this plan rolls, will be doing an excellent job, a good job. And I would give you also the example of Rashtriya Rifle battalions. When Rashtriya Rifle was raised from purely infantry units doing counter terrorist operations, it was now a unit which had a mix of all logistics unit, all supporting arms, and infantry. And let me tell you, it has proved as a very successful model. People had a view that maybe the ASC person and AOC person would not be able to fight, and engineers and others and whatever. But all of them have done an excellent job. With their basic infantry training, they have been. So this is again a change. And no way, I believe this will happen, that an Agniveer will refuse to fight, either be it counter-terrorist operations or against any of our enemies.
And the ultimate aim of any military is, of course, defense of the country, or fight wars when and where they're necessary. So you don't believe that this transformational change in any way will affect that?
So like I would say, this is a change, a major change. And the most important thing while doing this change, the policymakers and everybody has to keep in mind is that we should not, our operational effectiveness should not get affected. And that is why the 50% which they are talking of, and which I am saying is 60%, will be adequate with good training to ensure that the effectiveness of the unit continues. However, if the ratios go lower than 50% or get skewed to 75%, then it is dangerous.
You have kind of discussed this in the program, General, but Kedar Bhide asks, sir, shouldn't there be a pilot project conducted? Also, responsibility of absorbing the Agniveers back in government jobs industry is a must. Is it being mandated?
Now, I'll answer your second question first. It has not been mandated. And the government feels that mandating it would be wrong, but yes, there is a commitment from that they will do it. But yes, by law, it is not being mandated. Now, coming to the, I've slipped on your first part of the question.
The pilot project, sir, we kind of touched about it.
Like I explained, I would try to explain it that every year it is 40,000 Agniveers, which will be coming for the next 3 years, and 50,000 thereafter. So, in effect, out of an army of 12 lakhs, 40,000 is a very low percentage. Effectively, at the unit level, it is only 30 people which are coming. For the next 5 years, it is only 30 people. Next 4 years, it is only 30 people who will be coming. That is 120. That itself is like a pilot project. And if we find that it is not very effective, a review can be taken by the government. And it should be.
The Raksha Mantri dodged a question when he was asked about savings on pension revenue bills that the army has to fork out, or the government has to fork out, and whether it would give you more funds for capacity expansion. But do you believe this will over time help in what the army needs, which is cutting edge technology as well?
Definitely, I personally feel one of the motivation which maybe the government is not expressing in those terms in the long term will be in reducing our pension bill and our pay bill. And if the pension and pay bill gets reduced, effectively that money comes in for modernization, and that would be a strong motivation from the policy planners. Yes, of course. What I could understand from what the Raksha Mantri said is not that if the armed forces require money, it will not be given. Meaning that even for whatever money is required, that will be available to the armed forces. But yes, this Agnipath would definitely reduce the pay and the pension load in the long term.
An interesting thought from Hari Gautam again, General. During a large-scale war, it will help civilians to fight better. I presume it means over time, the Agniveers who've gone back into
Yeah.
society who have been
Like what you're saying is definitely all of these men, though it has not been defined in the orders or the rules, are like reservists. They're trained people, if in case need be. And in the US Army, the Marines, when they serve for 4 years, they have a 4-year reservist commitment period. It has not been defined in our policy or in the Agnipath thing. But yes, if every man or 4 extra people are required for the nation, yes, a trained manpower will be.
I think this is a nice question to round up this discussion, General, from Simbago again. Due to this scheme, General, how do you see the Indian Armed Forces in the next 25 years?
I see a more agile, younger, and a more uh, responsive army to fight future battles.
Perfectly put, General. Thank you so much for your time, sir, your experience and your expertise in handling this, which seems to be at some level a contentious issue. But we learn more about it, I guess, the fine print as we go along. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you, Amitabh.
Last comment from Sanjay Kalpatru says this infuses a lot of disciplined, motivated youth back to the nation. It's much needed for our nation's growth. Thank you for all your comments and questions that you addressed to the General. You can also help support StratNews Global. There is a link in the YouTube descriptor, and we're putting up a UPI ID as well if you would like to do that. And as soon as this stream ends, YouTube has a new feature called Super Thanks. That will be a heart-shaped icon right next to the thumbs up that I hope you give this video. You've been watching StratNews Global and I'm Amitabh Revi.